viewers. On my way to Sterksman van Nederland, strongest man of the Netherlands in Kampen. It's about a 2-hour drive for me, and right now I just have to go on and on and on straight away. So I'm just gonna air some thoughts I've had, make it sort of a vague video. And the first thing is that I think traffic laws prove individualism doesn't really quite work. I've had this thought a few times while driving, especially when you see people drive irresponsibly. Consider if there were no traffic laws and we had to all just make our own decisions and try to figure out how best to get from A to B with all the other people around us. Wouldn't really work, would it? We already have as many car crashes now. Imagine if everyone were to just do whatever they want, drive as fast as they want, not yield right away, anything like that. Proves that on a complex system you need central control to an extent. I mean, you still need each individual car to be operated by a driver to react to developments as they happen. But you can't have a complete free-for-all individualism, egoism sort of thing either. That was a thought I had. It's just one of the systems that kind of disproves the whole liberal individualist notion. Also disproves egalitarianism, because you got good drivers and bad drivers. You got people who just follow the rules as stipulated too closely, which is dangerous, and you've got those who flaunt the rules, which is dangerous. And another thought I had is I rewatched Stanley Kubrick's movie Dr. Strangelove the other day. I don't remember exactly how I got to that. Some guy recommended. No, there was a reference to the gaps, and the mineshaft gap thing occurred to me, and then I went to rewatch it. And I have to say, you know, I don't like modern entertainment. I don't like movies, and I think it has a lot to do with what kind of movies are out there. I know Morgoth and Millennial Woes and such really love doing their movie reviews and really love their pop culture references. I don't. I despise it because I think it's all trash. But if you look at Dr. Strangelove, which has actually genuinely good cinematography, every scene has effort put into it, has a lot of work put into it. And you don't see that in modern movies anymore. It's all just a bunch of CGI, a bunch of action. In Dr. Strangelove, the characters are written well. Of course, the characters are a satire of what right-wingers are about and what right-wingers believe, right? It's a satire on the macho, masculine sort of man. It kind of has a sexual subtext to it all, which leftists always love. But they are characters with a persona, and they're well written, and they have motivations. And like I say, every scene has detail put into it. You know, there's little jokes, because it's a comedy, a dark comedy. There's little jokes here and there, and all of Stanley Kubrick's work is like that. It's very well constructed. It's what you actually might call film as art, and you see that in early cinema much more, like the giant sets of the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer studios, and like the Ten Commandments, those sorts of movies, and also the movies of Fritz Lang. That's art cinema. Cinema's art, sorry. You don't see that much anymore these days. It's all flashy stuff with no substance to it. It's like food these days, American style food, McDonald's and all that. It's all quick flash of salt and fat, and not much else. No substance. No. There's no hints of anything else. No layers. You try that with French cuisine or anything else, Italian, though there's a lot more to it there, a lot more substance, and that's what modern cinema lacks. And what I thought was, well, how does the system to keep us all down and oppressed and, you know, obsessed with entertainment, but they can't even make good entertainment anymore? I know Stanley Kubrick is of a certain persuasion, or was, and that of course early cinema was also significantly under the control of these people of a certain persuasion, but at least they made decent products because they still had to conquer the market. They had to get market share. They had to outcompete others who were making quality products. And now they've got a monopoly and they can just make shit. and I don't think it works much as a distraction anymore. It seems to work for some people still, even people in our circles. I cannot understand the kind of people who find it interesting to talk about modern movies or even movies from the 80s. I think by then it was already crap. The cinematography is just not good. Like people say that who made RoboCop and such again, Verhoeven, that he makes good movies. I mean, to an extent you can say that about Blade Runner, but everything else is just kind of crappy leftist attempts at satire of the right, which is another thing that I noted with Dr. Strangelove and the way he writes the characters. It's basically impossible to satirize the right wing because a lot of people on the right wing will just unironically sympathize with it. Like RoboCop is a satire of a fascist sort of police state, just like Judge Dredd is, and you'll just have a lot of right-wing people agreeing with that being a perfectly fine system. That's a perfectly fine system to run the justice, like that. And the same with Dr. Strangelove. They'll be like, yeah, why don't we just nuke the Russians? I mean, General Ripper is right. You know, it's very hard to satirize that from a right-wing perspective because the right wing will just unironically agree. It's only funny for the left because the left gets stuck in that. Well, stuck in that's not the right word. Sorry, traffic up ahead. The left finds it funny because they think these people are dumb or don't understand anything. It's just that we know the same things the left does. We just disagree with their conclusions, right? That's just one of those things I've found many times, that every attempt, like Warhammer 40,000 as well, started out as an attempt to sort of satirize fascism and theocracy, and it's just found unironic appeal amongst a lot of people because it has this romanticism, it has this harshness of simple solutions, it solves problems, cuts through the red tape sort of idea, and that appeals to quite a lot of people instinctually because it's, you know, very much part of the male psyche. Those are some thoughts I had. I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and pay attention to the road again. My conclusion for this one would be, do you really care about all these modern movies, even the ones who pick it apart? Like, a lot of people on the right seem to like things like Red Letter Media and so on, and again, like jobs like Morgan do movie reviews and such. I do not see the appeal. Crap's crap, even if you're making fun of it, even if you're trying to pluck at what the underlying motivations is, it's still shit. I can pick a McDonald's burger apart and analyze its components and everything, but all I'm doing is just further proving that it's all substanceless food, that it's could barely even be called food. So the way to defeat, what you should do is what the early certain people did in Hollywood: take over the market, make your own cultural products, make your own movies. That's how you actually win. You have to outcompete them, you have to get market share. Of course, that's very difficult because they have a monopoly, they've got censorship and everything on their side. All that stuff makes their market position extremely dominant, but that's always the case with monopolies. Monopolies will always work together with the state and the existing institutions to maintain their monopoly, and to break the monopoly is quite hard. It's the same thing with the economic system currently with Amazon and so on, and Google and everything, increasingly centralizing the whole economy around themselves. Point being that you shouldn't be critiquing. Critiquing is a purely negative act. Critiquing is just saying, oh, you're doing something wrong. You need to prop up an alternative. You need to make your own movies. You need to make your own art, literature. That's where a lot of the romantic nationalism that many of us admire from the 19th century, it emerged from artistic movements. It emerged from the Volkisch art of like the Jugendstil in Germany. Of course, went both ways, you know. The art was inspired by political events like the Napoleonic Wars and the fall of the Holy Roman Empire, and then the art inspired the nationalism further. That happened throughout the 19th century. For the French, Napoleon was also a heroic figure and inspired a lot of art after his fall, and this sense of revanchism and French greatness and all that. Anyway, defeat crappy movies, you need to make good movies and put your own ideological messages in that. I think the distributors talks about this quite a lot, that we need to make cultural content of our own. And I don't see much of that happening. And I think the West is culturally, as many people know and have said before, quite dead. They're capable of creativity. There's very little change in the pop culture, very little change in the substance of the stories. I'm inclined to think that Joseph Campbell's notion of the hero with 1,000 faces and that every story has its own cycle, that's a product of the lack of creativity in the modern West, that all the stories look alike is simply because we formalize them that way, and we rationalize old stories to work that way. Old stories in their original versions could be quite irrational and didn't have much logical structure or sense. Anyway, that's that. I have another 100 kilometers or so to drive, so I'll see you at the tail end.